some persons. I don't know how far, but I'm aware of quite a few who have reached a very high level of spiritual progress and illumination. I know.
How do we recognize them?
Well, many they don't proclaim the spiritual status, but when you read the scriptures and when you try to analyze, you try to some conclusions that gives you an insight. So you get the feeling. If you are sincere spiritual seekers, in the presence of those advanced souls, you feel something different. It depends upon our own ability to recognize. See, a great football player may be able to recognize a Pele or Maradona. I may not be able to do that. So a great cricketer a cricket fan may be able to recognize a great cricket player. Similarly, when we live in the world of spiritual ideas, reading the books, then we naturally get the feeling. I don't know how to explain it because it's all subjective, but you do feel that they are advanced souls. You feel that feeling. We have about 4 minutes, so questions.
Swamiji, so you cautioned against making this japa into a ritualistic or more mechanical kind of things. But so the tendency when you are repeating is to get mechanical. So what are the possible ways that you would suggest to make this more lively?
Yes. Ceremonial practice, which later becomes somewhat mechanical, may be all right to begin with for a beginner. But then, if we go on practicing sincerely, simultaneously, reading books and discussing, then our own mind develops a faculty. As I said, a torchlight turning towards itself. Oh, I am becoming a bit too mechanical. Our own mind will tell us. In fact, that's one uniqueness of a spiritual seeker. That's what Sri Ramakrishna really means when he says, our own mind becomes our guru. When we take the first step very solidly, we get an idea which way to move to reach the next stage. So, depending upon the sincerity of the seeker, our own mind develops the faculty of self-analysis.
Well, there's also a chance of our self-deluding that we are focusing on meditating and we are doing this rightly. There's also a tendency to delude ourselves that I am doing the right way. What is the way to assess ourselves?
But yes, that's true. There's one indication is what they call Chitta Prasada. Chitta Prasada is a complete. Prasada here means a kind of inner contentment. You feel an inner contentment. That contentment is totally different qualitatively from anything like satisfaction. An inner feeling, at least you get the feeling you're on the right track. That itself is a great achievement. So you feel we are on the right track. So mind gets a feeling of serenity, calmness, and a feeling that there is nothing higher, there is no other track to follow, there is no other way, this is our path. That feeling, a strong subjective conviction comes to our mind. It's intrinsic. Yes.
One question. So you are talking about spiritual moderation. Now,
Spiritual moderation in our activities. You can call it spiritual moderation in spiritual life.
like moderation in sadhana,
Yes.
moderation in sadhana.
Yeah.
Now, for Thakur, when he did his sadhana, so he used to cry along the bank of the Ganges, and people would come and see how badly he wanted the vision of mother. And at the end, he was he almost tried to kill himself,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
With so do you call, I mean, is that really moderation?
No, I understand. That's true. See, of course, we have to make a distinction between great universal teachers who come for an age to teach the whole humanity and normal spiritual seekers. To give an idea of what it means, what it implies, I can refer to another episode. After Sri Ramakrishna's passing away, some of his household disciples started rehearsing samadhi behind the closed doors. They started jumping up and down, practicing samadhi. And the Swamiji tried to expose, to teach them, to put them on the right track. So sometimes, this could happen. So Swamiji said, this is not the way you have to practice. You have to slowly practice and you have to observe, you have to digest. Sri Ramakrishna himself said, if an elephant enters a small pool, it creates a lot of ripples. But if the elephant enters the Pacific Ocean, it won't make any ripple. So the implication was that we may practice, but at the same time we should not get excited. Sri Ramakrishna, in Sri Ramakrishna's case, he practiced innumerable spiritual sadhanas and reached the highest level of perfection in one single life. And for him, it didn't take a long time. For the highest spiritual Advaitic experience, he took very short time. In the third day, he got highest experience. But in the case of normal spiritual seekers, what frequently happens is they go to extreme levels of asceticism without the mind being ready for it. If the mind is ready, then no problem. But very often, our mind may not be ready for the ascetic practices. That's why I said earlier, a person who fasts and also complains that other people are eating food. That means his mind is not ready for fasting, but is physically fasting. So this duplicity can be detrimental because it closes our natural track and we delude ourselves into thinking that we are fit for something higher. So that's why Lord Krishna makes a general instruction for common spiritual seekers. Yukta ahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasya, yukta supnavabodhasya, yugo bhava dukkha. For Sri Ramakrishna, for 12 years he didn't know when the sun rose in the east and set in the west. That is the highest experience for a great teacher. But all spiritual seekers do not belong to that category. So if ordinary spiritual seekers try to practice that way, it will be very dangerous. That's why he gives warning to something. Sri Ramakrishna's instructions are, his instructions are meant for individual seekers depending upon their own level of fitness. And that's very important. That's a function of a great Acharya, teacher. So, we'll continue this discussion tomorrow. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.